Welcome to Staring to the Abyss. Returning from a trek in the woods is myself, Richard Gerlach. Barely making it back is Michael Patrick Hicks.
Hello.
The person I'm surprised is even here is Matt Brandenburg.
Hey, longer adventures are fun sometimes.
And the intelligent one that stayed home is Let Me Missed.
Hey, I'm probably just stuck home. I couldn't go anywhere. Like an island kind of does that to you.
I can feel that. I'm excited for today's episode, actually. This story is a fucking trip.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a crazy one.
I'm excited to discuss this with everybody.
Do you know what it's called?
I do, actually, but I got to look up real quick. It's been a long week for me.
Seemed like you were avoiding naming this week's story.
A little bit.
It's a story. There's some woods in it.
It's written by that guy.
Birds of Passage by Gordon B. White.
Yes,
I knew
you
it was
are correct.
Gordon B. White. I read the story on Wednesday, and I've had a long weekend at the Cape. So, surprisingly finished 2 books in the time I also read that as well.
Good job.
I can't believe I finished 2 books.
I can't believe I ate the whole thing.
It's nice actually being able to read a book cover to cover.
You've been kind of on a DNF kick for a while.
Yeah. This COVID pandemic messed up my attention span.
Yeah.
And finding things that keep my interest.
I can feel that 100%.
A bit difficult.
It's rough. Yeah, it's challenging. We're all kind of fucked up by this thing.
Yeah.
But
psychologically, if not physically, it's just mentally draining.
It's a little intense.
I agree. But one of the books I did finish this week, I'm going to get both these out of the way just because we already covered them. But this week I was able to finish Moon Lake by Joe R. Lansdale.
Yay!
Which is a fantastic Texas Gothic. And it's even when nothing's happening, those pages turn themselves.
Yeah, it's really smooth writing.
It's incredibly readable. It's a compelling mystery, and it goes in some pretty crazy directions that I wasn't fully expecting. And I think Joe did a really great job with it, and I would highly recommend our listeners check it out.
Agreed.
I want to read that. I haven't yet.
It's really good. I was quite happy with it.
Yeah.
And I also read To Offer Her Pleasure by Ali C. And again, it's a really fucked up coming-of-age novella that I think fans of our podcast will love. It starts off pretty tame, but it gets to some really fucked up places by the end.
That it does.
And it's really well written. It also pretty much the pages turn themselves. It's so hard to put down. Completely engrossing.
Well, that's a nice, thing. I like books like that.
And that's all I finished this week. Besides starting The People's Republic of Everything by Nick Mamatas. We'll be reading kind of like a story a day. And then I also picked up The Deer Kings by Wendy M. Wagner. So I'm excited to check that out.
Oh, yes. Very good.
I like just the title alone. I was excited.
Yeah, it's a good one. But Mike, what about you?
Well, I spent the whole week reading the collection that contains Gordon B. White's Birds of Passage. This story is in his release from April 2020. It came out last year, As Summer's Mask Slips and Other Disruptions. And it's a pretty good collection overall. It didn't gel 100% for me. I thought the ratio of hits to misses was actually fairly balanced. I had just as many that I really liked, as much as that were just kind of meh for me. There thankfully weren't any that I outright hated, but there were a number that I didn't quite love or really get into. I will say one of my absolute favorites that came out of this is a story called The Buchanan Boys Ride Again, which I think you guys would love the hell out of. It is very heavily inspired by Stephen King and dashes of The Blob.
Oh. So it has this kind of 80s nostalgia feel.
A little bit, yeah. It's definitely got that kind of creature feature story to it. And it is about a divorced dad who is taking his son for the weekend. They're going to go on a fishing trip.
Oh, my God. Wait. Are you describing the story we read?
No.
Okay.
No, here's where it gets different. They get reined in by a massive storm that traps them in their apartment, which is beginning to flood. The sewage is backing up, and he and his son are trying to clear the bathtub drain so they can get some of the water to go back down. And what they find in the drain is more than just a giant clog of ancient hair and skin cells and body dirt. And it's just...
Body dirt.
What is wrong with your drain?
It's got all that grit, you know?
Body dirt. Best description ever.
Well, you know, I mean, there are some men out there who allegedly do not wipe their asses, so I would imagine that their shower drains are even worse.
Oh, man. I don't know.
I just took a bath this morning, and I'm like, oh, thanks. Now I feel dirty.
Welcome to things you wish you didn't know. Thank you, Mike.
My dad's a plumber, so I'm going to tell this to him.
Yeah,
So, Dad, how much body dirt did you pull out of this guy drain this weekend?
Well, you know, I mean, you get dirty, right? Do you not? I mean, I have kids. They play in the mud all the time. They get fucking filthy. So you go to wash them, there's a lot of body dirt that comes off. It's like, you know, you get like the skin cells. You shed a layer of skin cells every day. All that dust in your house, do you know what that's made out of? That is you.
Tell us, Mike.
That is you floating around in the air, pieces of you collecting on top of your television that you haven't dusted in 10 years. You could probably make a new person out of it.
So are we all cannibals because we breathe it all in?
Slightly.
Just partly cannibals.
It's like the cannibals.
Self-cannibals.
Yeah. It's auto-cannibalism to a degree.
It's like those sewers in London that are just full of fat.
Yes. Yeah.
So
make a bunch of candles.
Does this body dirt lead to the discovery of a monster?
It does.
I mean, we already told the horror story without the monster, so an added bonus.
So yeah, their plumber snake catches on something and pulls it up, and it starts to pull back down, and it goes from there. And it is just a really, really fun creature feature. It's got some great character work from the Buchanan boys. There's a bit of tension between the father and the son because of the divorce, and the son wanting to do other things than hang out with his broke-ass dad who doesn't have any money from paying child alimony. All those fun things he wants to just play on his cell phone instead of hanging around with his deadbeat. And they find out there's much worse things that could happen for a weekend.
Nice.
So it's a good one. I would say check that one out for sure. The other good one is The Lure of Lollipop Tree, which is this, right from the beginning of it, White lays out this really disturbing and eerie sense of foreboding. And by the end of it, it gets into this really trippy, psychedelic, weird fiction, what the fuck is happening? And it turns into something like, I was convinced from the very beginning, like this guy was a serial killer or a stalker or something crazy because of the way White writes it. And then by the end of it, you just get into this really surreal and odd Lynchian vibe. So that was really cool. I would say check that one out too. And we'll be talking about another standout from this collection in a little bit. What's this one called, Rich?
Birds of Passage.
Thank you. That's right. That is what it's called. I thought I could get you.
Nice.
Sharp as a whistle, man.
Sharp as a whistle.
Sharp as a whistle.
So
Matt, what about you?
Well, I was going to ask Mike and I guess the whole crew, because you mentioned like a 50-50 on the collection.
Yeah.
So I've been the last, I guess, since COVID started, either reading collections or anthologies on top of whatever else I read. Do you power through stories you don't like in either of those, or do you just stop and jump to the next story?
It depends. Most of these stories in here I did. Well, no, actually, all of them I did power through. And a lot of them start off really interesting and intriguing, but then they just kind of lose steam by the end.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really wrap up as satisfying as they had begun. For me, you guys might feel different about it, but the ones that stood out for me, they were really, really good, or they had some darkly comic spin on it, like The Rising Sun, which is kind of a black comedy about the rapture, which I thought was hilarious and really well done. But other ones just have really intriguing premises, but then they just kind of fizzle, or they don't feel like there's enough of a resolution to them to satisfy me.
Yeah.
And some of it is just not to my particular taste. Like you guys know, I'm like way more into the ultra violence and the creature features, and this leans more heavily toward weird fiction and cosmic horror, which is fine. I do like those, but I don't know. I think just kind of reading them back to back, where this was the only thing that I was reading all week, it just kind of couldn't hold my attention as much. And a lot of that might be up to COVID fatigue and just being kind of burnt out on life in general. So,
fair.
I mean, not before we give it over to Matt, is like, have you ever read the Chismark collection A Long December? Anyone here?
No.
It's a really good collection, but I had a similar thing happen with me where, like, if you're reading the same author, like, time after time again, and you kind of learn that author's style, sometimes short story collections can get a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that Chismark collection is quite repetitive, and I think
it's a
it hurts
big
it
one,
by the
too.
end. It is a big one. And half the stories end on, like, this gut punch line sentence, and, like, you kind of learn a structure over reading it, and, like, it's a good structure and they're good stories, but it also, the more you read of the author, the less impact it'll have on you in spreading stories apart, which I think is the best way to tackle collections or anthologies, is, like, a story a day, or, like, a story every couple days.
Kind of break it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one's a big book. White's collection is not. I think this one's like
180 pages, I think.
Yeah, it's less than 200 pages at any rate. But I've also just in general have been feeling burnt out on reading.
Oh.
Like there have days that come out where I'm kind of like struggling to find something to read, and it's just at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, I just don't want to fucking read right now.
I completely feel you on this one.
Hey, sometimes we have those days.
I would rather just kill some brain cells and watch Chopped. Or
that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm now like deep into the Bake Squad.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, pretty desserts, sure. I can't eat them, but they're nice to look at.
Yeah, like yesterday, I mean, the kids, they were driving me up the fucking wall, and I decided, you know what? They can go and fuck around. I'm just going to put on a movie, and I ended up watching Star Trek Beyond for like the third time, maybe.
That's a good one.
I haven't seen it in a few years, and I had kind of forgotten about it, but I'm playing the Star Trek Fleet Command on my mobile phone because that's another way I kill my brain cells instead of reading some books and trying to relax with that. And that kind of got me wanting to go back and watch Star Trek Beyond. It's like, that's what I could have been reading something after I had finished this collection. And it's like, fuck it. I'd rather just watch TV and not really have to focus on something. So I put on a movie I'd seen repeatedly, and that was it.
Have you guys checked out the Lower Decks?
No.
I have not. I have a gripe with Paramount Plus, so maybe someday I'll be able to.
They're on Amazon Prime.
For you.
For me? Oh, is it not available for?
Yeah, they're through Paramount Plus for us. And Paramount Plus, which I used to have, someone from another country got into my account and changed my password on me.
Oh no.
And their customer service was completely like unhelpful.
Oh shit.
And they pretty much just said, well, we'd like to have your service back, but we suggest you call your bank and have them deactivate the charge from your account. And I said, okay. And then I did that, and I'm not going back.
Aw, that's such a shame. It's really nice. They're really funny.
It looks funny.
It looks funny.
It's so funny. I just the opening sequence just alone it cracks me up every single time. Especially when the ship, the Federation ship sees the like a cube, like, and they're like in a fight with other starships. The Federation ship's like, nope, the fuck out of there. It just flies away.
That's amazing.
It's so funny. I love that they have the Star Trek elements, which I love, but they're adding, some kind of weird shit into it and making it funny at the same time, and I'm living for it.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I have just been grabbing the DVD box sets or the Blu-ray box sets when Discovery and Picard come out, and I'm not paying another monthly subscription fee for yet another streaming service.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair.
To stay up on everything, which I don't have time for to begin with, but we'd have to have 75 streaming services to stay current on everything nowadays.
I know. This is getting ridiculous.
There's too many
Shudder and HBO Max and Netflix, and then you got to get Paramount Plus, and then you got to get
Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, and a whole bunch of other fucking shit with pluses in it.
But then you got HBO Max.
That's true.
They're edgy.
They're better than
I did
Plus.
have to have for the Suicide Squad and Justice League.
Yeah.
But more is, no, I'm not interested. And Paramount, whatever. I don't need a Paramount.
Yeah.
It's funny. I asked this nice question, and look at where we get to.
What was your question?
You didn't answer your own question, Matt.
Did I answer it?
No, you did. So I was just wondering because, so my question, if you forgot, was about stopping stories and jumping to the next one in an anthology or a collection. And, at first, the beginning of me doing this, I was like, no, I'm going to read every single story in either one because I'm doing this. I want to read the good and the bad. But recently I've been kind of giving them, a couple pages. And then if I don't like it, I just jump to another one.
Yeah.
And Rich, I agree with you because it's I jump back and forth just depending on what I have. So it's either a collection or anthology. Right now I started 2 or 3 days ago, the Haley Piper one, Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy, which we covered one of those stories. And I'm liking it. But, anyway, that's just saying I just recently started a collection. Before that was a lot of those anthologies I brought up. But yeah, now I'm kind of if I just don't like it, I'm going to skip on. But anyway, what I was saying for Rich, now that my train of thought is back, I agree on collections because sometimes you can. I haven't noticed it in the Haley Piper one, and I think there was a couple other ones I've read where they are so varied that it is kind of nice to just see you're not figuring out their formula. Other times you kind of have a point of where you're okay, they're doing kind of the same thing. I kind of know where this is going to lead, even if it's a different world or whatever it is, and I wonder too, and I think both of you and Vitmaid brought up that concept of the length. I think shorter collections maybe are ideal because then you're not getting 20 stories because there's more of a chance that they're all going to be the same or similar. Where if you get a smaller one with 8 to 10, which I know is not a lot. Some people like the bigger collection because you're getting a lot. But I think for the smaller ones, that gives the author more of a chance to kind of pick their favorites and not just put everything in there.
I'd take quality over quantity.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually working out with my short story collection. Which should I choose? Because a lot of these characters die in my stories. I might not like that. One beta reader actually said that it was not conventional to have that in horror stories, and I was like, what?
Yeah, that's weird.
I was like, no, what? You always want to have a final guy or a final girl? That doesn't work in real horror,
No.
There's plenty of horror stories that end with everybody dead at the end.
Yeah, I don't think it's
those.
unconventional at all.
I think that's what I love, and that's probably what I've been writing a lot in my stories. Hey, you're gonna die tonight. Horribly, but you're gonna die. And then he just said that this, like, it wasn't the trend in horror stories now, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
it's gonna be trend in mine.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to follow the trend.
Yeah, we don't need to write to market, and this is what it's got to be. It's so much copy paste bullshit that
I know.
I'm more sick of than anything else. It's like,
yeah, that's like what I'm noticing now, and I haven't watched much yet, but I'm getting a little nervous about all the John Wick trope, where everyone's kind of copying and pasting the same concept of this person that tried to get out of the job, out of the business, out of the life, and now we're pulled back in and killing everything. So, but anyway, I'll go back to what we've been talking about, which is stuff we've been reading. Since I've been gone, I kind of read a lot, but I'll just pick two. Maybe I'll do one, and then we can jump back around to the other one. I read Matt Bartlett's "If It Bleeds" and oh my goodness, Devour. What was the songs to devour? Maybe I don't have the book right in front of me, and I'm totally blanking on the titles.
I know what you're talking about, and I don't remember what the other one is either.
Oh, Lordy.
Those are both fantastic, though.
Yes. They're both great.
I feel so bad. I'm sorry, Matt. I don't know why I don't have the book in front of me, and I'm messing up the titles. He basically took two of his novellas and smashed them together into one book.
That fucking ice cream truck.
Yes. Oh. Yes. So both very focused on leads and WXXT. The first one is a funeral home owner and his sister. The owner found a radio that, like, kind of in a dream. I don't know. It's Bartlett, so it's all really wacky and out there, really trippy kind of stuff. But I think he found the radio. And then he slowly goes crazy, and he's like taking all the bodies from the funeral home and stacking them up and performing for them. And then, If It Bleeds, it's all about this song that I really like this one more because it's about this song that the ice cream truck plays that makes all these kids. Basically, he's a Pied Piper, kind of pulls all these kids away and they all disappear. And then you find out, like, the song is sung by this, like, kind of aging rock star, but the song is actually going through the past, and that's like now you're kind of getting all these little stories where the song is an older and older version of the song. And people
quick interruption. Music of the Moldering.
Music of the Moldering. There it is. Thank you.
Nice. Sounds good.
Yes, he posted a while back that he had it, and so I quickly picked up that because I knew If It Bleeds was definitely a charity novella from Nightscape, and then I'm not sure Music for the Moldering where that came out, but I was happy that he kind of put these together, and it's just fun, crazy. What's nice is having now read Gateways to Abomination, you can kind of see like his world because there's little touches of the FCC and If It Bleeds, and like there's a businessman that's trying to track down this song, and he just. If you want really bizarre wackiness, definitely read him. I think I mentioned it with Gateways of Abomination, but I'll mention it again. It's so like Welcome to Night Vale kind of concept. If you've listened to that, you could probably put those two together and have like a really messed up mind. So
I got to get cracking on that tribute anthology.
Yes, that looks awesome.
And I think if I recall right, Music of the Moldering might have gotten an individual release from, is it Eve's?
Yeah,
it is. I have that chapbook.
The Tall Hat Press, I believe.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, I have a copy of that, actually.
I do, too.
It's
good.
Really nice.
I read that. If you haven't read it, it's really good.
And if you can find a copy of the audio CD of Matt Bartlett's work through Tall Hat Press still, get that, too.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Just so crazy, the music, because he describes like this weird music and people crying and backwards violins and all this stuff. It's just so weird.
I love Matt's stuff. It's
so good.
So it's dream logic in the best way.
Yes.
And those little snippets of what the fuck's the guy's name? Uncle reads the news.
Yes. So crazy. Yeah. So that was one of them. I'll jump to the next one after we come around.
All right. Whitney, what about you?
I have not had time to write or to read at all this week. I've just been too busy. There's this one short story that I started writing, and I just set this goal that I would finish it this weekend, and I did. Yesterday, I wrote 32 pages in my notebook for it.
Wow. Nice.
How's your hand feeling?
Yeah.
Veteran, Mike. I do this all the time, so it wasn't that bad.
Got super muscles.
All my novels are written in notebooks, so yeah.
Wow. I don't write anymore by hand. It's like I sign a check and my hand is worn out. I get tired after that. I got to take a break.
Get cramps.
Yeah, I got to ice it.
Pay the babysitter. It's like, hold on a minute. I need some ice.
My hand hurts.
Yeah, my knuckles are swelling up. Ligaments are hurting.
You old man.
Vitamins.
So I haven't done any reading at all. I started though this morning before my morning walk. I decided to start Nightfall by Daniel.
Oh yes,
In the Nightmareland Chronicles, I think it was called.
He has a 5th book coming out soon for those actually. Yeah.
Yes. So I had the first book on my Kindle, and I decided to start reading it because I said to myself that I would have to, shed a little bit of my TBR, especially my Kindle TBR.
Yeah.
So I started that. Yeah, well, from the just first 2% that I've started, it sounds pretty good. Especially the beginning. I love how he opened up the story, so I was intrigued by that opening line. And so instead of, like Mike said, just, because I'm getting a little bit burned out from reading, I've just been watching a lot of, mindless shit. And then some also weirdly entertaining and weirdly mindfuck stuff. My husband and I, we finished watching the Witcher film.
Oh,
the anime one?
Yeah, the animated one.
How was it?
Nightmare of the Wolf, it's called, I think. I really enjoyed it. At first, I actually thought it was a miniseries. And my husband and I were always just, going back and forth like, so when is this episode going to end? Like, there's this one scene where it's like, was kind of like the perfect ending for an episode to end. And it was like, okay, so it's probably just a long miniseries. And then the movie continued. And we're like, oh, wait, nope, that's a film. But we were entertained by it. I haven't read the Witcher books, nor have I played the video games. But I love how this world is created, and I loved the animation in the film. It was really good. We definitely need more animation like this. Especially, I know a lot of people make fun of the Japanese animations and how the mouths don't, work properly. It's just, just a yap, yappity yap, yap, yap. But in this kind of animation, it doesn't. So you have these kind of mouth quirks and the the facial structure quirks, and I loved how they worked with it.
That sounds awesome.
And then yesterday, I went to see The Green Knight.
Oh, how was it?
It's like I said, it's visual mindfuck. It is visually stunning. Like I would not be surprised if it got like an Oscar nomination for like cinematography or costumes or just anything that comes to terms with the visual component of the movie. Because I was just blown away by that. I had no idea what the film itself, what it was about. I knew it was some kind of Arthur, like it wasn't a story that contained within the Arthurian legend. I have heard of Gawain, but I was like, I know more about Arthur and Lancelot, not so much about Gawain. And I thought it was a blast.
Awesome. I want to see that.
Dev Patel was phenomenal in it.
That is good.
Yeah,
especially because he doesn't have a lot of lines, but just how he does it visually, and also just with the few lines that he has, he managed to portray this, naive, insecure, I want to say like in quotation marks, knight, because he always continues to tell people, no, I'm not a knight. And everyone's just like, yes, you are, you're a knight. And he's like, no, I'm not a knight. Arthur hasn't knighted me yet. There was a lot of weird shit in it.
Yeah.
There's one scene that my husband just looked at me and he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I just kept thinking, did we go into Attack on Titan world now?
Oh, awesome! I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's a wild, weird movie.
It is definitely weird, but I really enjoyed it. The middle part, Richard and I were discussing it. The middle part was a little bit, like you said, meandering. There were some scenes in it that took a little bit long to execute, and they had a little bit of a Shyamalan vibe to it, especially with the 360 paneling that it does with the camera. But the third act was so good. And just how it ended, I heard we were not a lot in the cinema, but I heard some people were like, "Huh?" after the movie ended, and I just thought, this is actually a really great ending. It was good.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the ending worked really well, but I have a lot of thoughts about that, especially because Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is like one of my favorite Arthurian poems.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've read that and how close did it stay?
It is completely different than the poem. It is a subversion on the poem.
Interesting.
In the poem, it's all about like Gawain showing that he is a brave knight, and he goes through acts of courage. And when he beheads the Green Knight, and he has to meet him a year later, he goes out to meet him, and throughout the whole poem, he's doing these acts of courage to show how he's a brave and courageous man, and how he's a great knight. And he has a green sash tied around him to protect him from the Green Knight.
That was also a really important part of the movie.
Yes. And in the poem, he reveals the green sash at the end to kind of show the one thing that he didn't do correct, to show his cowardice. Mm-hmm. And the Green Knight hits him on the back of the neck. Well, not hits him, nicks him with the axe on the back of his neck, saying he was going to get one cut for each uncourageous thing he did. And since the green sash lie was the only uncourageous thing, he has a scar on the back of his neck to remind him of his cowardice.
Huh.
And in like Camelot, the green sash becomes a symbol for Gawain, for his bravery. But to Gawain, it becomes a reminder of the time he was a coward.
Interesting.
And that's kind of how the poem ends. The movie subverts that completely.
Yes, it really does. It really does. It really, owns on the fact that he is kind of a coward.
Yeah. The movie brings up a lot of different themes and stuff, but I can get into that discussion for another day.
Yeah.
If you're interested in seeing the movie, I would recommend it. I wasn't too big on it, but I think it's visually stunning. The performances are great. It just didn't do it for me the way it's doing it for a lot of other people.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be like people will either love it or hate it.
That's cool. Yeah, I want to see it, so.
Well, I will say one last thing for me is I discovered an old Channel 4 show on Amazon Prime, which is Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh, I've been hearing some rumblings about this.
Have you guys ever heard of this show?
Mm-mm.
No.
It's on Prime in the States. I don't know where Channel 4 shows go in Iceland, but they should be on one of your streaming platforms.
Yeah, probably.
It is about Gareth Marenghi, who's a fictional horror writer that has been made up as a character, and he's kind of like a parody of like Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
And like each episode of Dark Place opens with him reading a section from his book to the camera. And then like the first episode is like, I can't give the exact quote, but he says, "She looked down and she saw blood, 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 more blood, blood, and bits of sick." The show is kind of presented as you're watching a DVD of
fun.
Them revisiting a show that he wrote, produced, and starred in the 1980s called Dark Place.
Huh.
And Dark Place is like, picture every bad, campy 80s TV show and make it intentionally bad and campy.
Amazing.
Included with like wooden acting and everything. And that's Dark Place. And like everybody is acting like no one reads their lines correctly. No one can act properly. Like, it's really funny, especially if you're into like 80s horror tropes and stuff. It plays with a lot of those. One of the guys who's in What We Do in the Shadows is in this show too.
Oh.
The British guy, I forget his name. He's also in the IT Crowd.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember his name.
Yeah, Matt Berry.
Matt Berry.
Nice.
He is hilarious in it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, one of his lines is like exactly like this. He's like, "What am I? A crock of shit, sir? Is this Saint Crock of Shit Hospital?" And he just like reads everything super flat and like that.
Oh, that's
Richard
awesome.
Ayoade from the IT Crowd's in it as well. And he plays the manager of Gareth Marenghi, who was pressured into acting in the show despite the fact he can't act. And the show is just the weird things that happen in this hospital and like them trying to solve these paranormal mysteries. Like one of them is like a man randomly explodes and his body is the gateway to hell.
Oh,
so
nice.
they have to close the gateway of hell. Another one is people at the hospital start turning into Neanderthals. They don't know why. One of them is Gareth Marenghi walks into a giant eyeball monster having sex with one of his patients. And he kills the monster. The patient then dies giving birth to the son of the eyeball monster. And Gareth takes it home illegally to be his new son because it reminds him of the child that he once had.
Holy crap, this sounds amazing.
It just sounds so fucking bizarre.
It's hilarious.
I love it.
It'll appeal to like 80s horror fans a lot. The guy who plays Gareth Marenghi and like wrote and directed the show, he also later wrote and directed the movie Possum.
Oh, interesting.
So, but that's it for me. If you guys have anything else,
I do, but I haven't watched Possum yet because it like combined two fears, a puppet and a spider. So I was like, it's okay. Yeah, real quick, I jumped out of horror and went into a mystery, August Snow by Stephen Mac Jones. He's a Detroit author, and this is such an amazing mystery. We were talking about it this past week. There's 3 books. I think the third one just came out, but he sets it all. It's all set in Detroit and Michigan, but mostly Detroit. August Snow is our main character. He was a Detroit cop, and he took down the mayor and a bunch of corrupt cops, and then he got wrongfully terminated because of all this. So he sued the city, made $12 million, which the city could not afford. If you've been to Detroit, you would know that. And so everyone's kind of against him because of him doing this and saying that he took all this money and he took down a bunch of corrupt cops. So he had ran out of the country for like a year. He comes back and he gets his first big case before the corrupt cop situation was he helped this like big finance bank person. She kind of like has put in all this money into the city, and she's super wealthy, and he helped her. So now that he's back, she needs help with him taking down her bank. She's thinking her bank is doing some nefarious things, and he needs to figure it out. Well, then it quickly turns into, and none of this is spoiler, it's all in the beginning and or on the back. She ends up dying, so now he's got to figure out why she died. And then it just kind of goes from there. It's this just tight mystery. You don't like, I took a number of turns I did not expect. And just August Snow as a character is just great. He's just this, smart, tough guy that, he's got a lot of baggage, but like most mysteries, but he's a good guy overall. He's really taking care of Mexican town. That's where he's from, in Detroit. And he just, it reminded me a bit of, I would say, Blood Standard from Laird Barron. So that kind of he picks somebody up on the way that's kind of his partner. So again, if you read Blood Standard, I think it was Lionel that he picked up. So kind of same concept there. But no, I think Blood Standard didn't have much of the horror in it. I would think that was more straight mystery. So this is kind of the same straight mystery, very Detroit focused. And it's awesome because he like condemns a lot of the actions that happen, but then it's also like this great love letter to Detroit and just like this city that just kind of gets crapped on all the time and just what's happening in there. And he, as August Snow, he's trying his best to kind of bring his neighborhood back. So he's buying houses and then rebuilding them and everything. It's just, and then touches a lot of local areas and everything. So it's just awesome. If you're looking for a mystery, I couldn't put this one down. That's why I was able to finish multiple books this week. I just couldn't stop reading this. I just needed to see what was going to happen. I started the book that we're going to be talking about in October, so I didn't get a chance to go pick up the second one to just jump into that. But yeah, I highly recommend August Snow.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've got
Check
the
that
first
out.
one at any rate on my Kindle. So yeah, that's definitely already in my TBR. I just need to get my ass around to it at some point here.
Yeah, I think you'll really like it. It's got just everything in it. It's just awesome. Like there's some really awesome action scenes at the end. It's like intense stuff. And there's like this hitman. It's super good. I picked it up actually when I was in Detroit this past weekend and was like, oh, I'll start reading it because I finished Matt Bartlett. And then like I stayed up half the night reading it. And so I was like, so it's super good. And I want more people to read it. So,
well, I will check it out at some point. I've heard so much great things about the author, and it being Detroit based, that's the area, that's the region I'm in. So I'm very curious to give that a shot.
Yeah, it's good. He hits a lot of areas and just a lot of interesting descriptions. I love it because he kind of takes down Grosse Pointe a bit. All the rich people that live there and everything.
Deservedly so.
Yes. So that's fun. And a nice
Grosse
thing.
Pointe is so wealthy. In the winter, they salt and pepper their roads.
The shade.
Yeah. And what I'll say too is like for those who are not from Detroit or don't know a lot about Detroit, it still works. He still does. He describes it well enough where like I knew a lot of all the landmarks he was talking about, but he gives you enough detail to be like, oh, okay, I get what's going on. So it's not so local that you're kind of lost in what he's talking about.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because some people can get a little lost in that.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, he does a good job of covering that where you're kind of like, you know it, Easter egg, you know it if you've been there. But if you don't, you're like, oh, cool. I know exactly what he's talking about.
Cool.
So,
Nice.
Yes.
I have to check those out.
Yes.
Well, I think it's time to switch over from the city to the woods.
Yes.
You guys, we got to stop taking so many fucking camping trips on this thing.
I know. I was also going to say we got to stop reading X-Files stuff.
We seem to have developed this odd obsession of late with venturing into the woods with these stories.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I think because it's summertime,
I guess. Well,
Summertime should be beach stories, though.
Exactly. When are we going to get to my shark books that I've wanted to read?
We'll need to discuss them like, I don't know, November. So when they get released, it's winter time.
In December, we get The Meg by Steve Alton.
Yes. we do summer books there.
Yes. That would be
That'll help
awesome.
us warm up a little bit. We'll find we need some Hawaiian horror or something.
Some Polynesian spiced horror.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Yeah. Let's definitely do that.
We'll do like a little barbecue.
Yes.
You're in a
roast.
blizzard.
But this one was a really like I couldn't say a walk through the forest. This is more like being trapped and never knowing when you're going to get out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a wild story.
It is. I liked it. It was fun. I know it's in his collection, but it's also in an anthology, right?
I don't know. Let me see if there's a listing here of where things were originally printed.
Twice Told, the collection of doubles.
Yes,
I guess I don't have to look it up. Thank you,
edited by C.M. Muller.
Yes. So that like helped a little. Like, I mean, not that I needed help, but it explains some of what happens. Maybe not explains the right word. It gives you an idea of what's going on because there's a double possibly somewhere in the story. And I was like, oh, I like that he took my guess, whatever that concept was, and twisted it into this actually really neat, kind of touching story.
It was, yeah. It was like a cosmic horror meets this touching story between a father and a son.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not get the double aspect at all.
I didn't either. So I'm just as dumb as you, Mike.
What?
Matt, did you read the right story this week?
I thought I did.
Birds of Passage on Pseudopod.
I didn't get that aspect at all.
When they're doing the fire and the thing is copying it.
Yeah, I thought that was just a creature. I didn't. You thought it was like a doppelganger of the boy and his father?
Well, that's a good question.
I thought it was just a creature too.
I think you could go either way because I went back and forth on it because I think
it reminded me of kind of like a jellyfish type of creature, the way it was being described with having these long limbs and kind of floating in the air.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think like this. The reason I wondered, I mean, the second scene of it, you kind of get. I think it's more of that monster, but like they talk about seeing the little spark of fire, which the sun also did a spark of fire, and they both kind of went up. And then when they were waving the fire that first time, the other one was copying it. And when he was running up and then running back, it was moving forward and moving back.
Yeah, I took that as just being mimicry of whatever some intelligent creature that they had come across.
Well,
rather than some kind of doppelganger, double of the father and the son themselves.
So I think this is part of it too then is at the end when the dad comes back and he's old. I was wondering if maybe that was him traveling through the past a little. I also think it's a monster, so I don't know. I think there's a lot happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interplay between dimensionality here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We get into some very weird, very cosmic horror elements with this stuff, and all subtly played. It's not completely in your face, obviously, since we're all kind of trying to parse things a bit to figure out what was going on and what our reactions were to it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was, done subtly just to allow us as a reader to really let our imagination go crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess to back up for everyone listening, if you have not read or listened to this story, like I said, it's on Pseudopod number 663. We've already said it's in an anthology and it's in a collection.
I do have a real quick question about the Pseudopod. Does Alistair go into any of the theories behind the story? Does he talk about that doppelganger imagery, or how do they describe it?
They focused more on the father-son relationship.
Okay.
And what they say at the end of the Pseudopod thing, and when they talk, like Gordon, I guess, had some notes and said, exactly, like he said it was his father and son, and it was about him and his father. And I think they had also gone on a trip. They didn't explain. He was like, we also went on a canoe trip. I mean, obviously this stuff didn't happen, but and it was more about like adventuring and all of that. So they didn't go into detail on any of theories like that.
So the doppelganger is your interpretation.
That was my interpretation, at least of the first go round.
So we can just dismiss that.
I see how it is.
That's not to be trusted. We don't really give this any more time and attention.
I mean, and I think, I don't know. I think that could be part of it. Like, I think them seeing each other and especially kind of, well, all right, let's back up. Father and son going on a canoeing trip. they are going through this like river through the woods or a creek, and the dad had already been there when he was younger, and they had seen something, but they didn't say what. So then as it goes, there's nighttime, they see a fire, they see somebody waving at them, and then more crazy shit happens, and then the dad disappears. That's like super basic storyline. You should probably listen or read this.
I mean, there's a lot to digest of what happens in it, but it's like, because there's a lot of subtext that the story has.
Yes.
And there is a certain measure of foreknowledge that you have to have about cosmic horror tropes, like thins or thin spots. They refer to it here as a soft place.
Yeah.
And the time displacement, and also the weird creatures.
Right.
Yes.
Weird lights in the woods.
Yeah.
That could be doppelgangers.
It's all new to us here in the Abyss. Not at all like the last half dozen stories we've read.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
So I guess the first question is, because the dad had said he had been out there and something had happened to him. What do we think happened to the dad? Did he see the same thing?
He said that he went with his friend. I think something might have happened to his friend.
Yeah, I think only one came back last time.
Yeah.
Ah.
And he does kind of make that preparation for saving his son. He's willing to sacrifice himself to be that purported victim, whatever happened in his past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I forget, was he the father when he was a boy? Was he with his father at that time?
No, it was with his friend,
It was with a friend. Okay.
Gary.
All right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember when he grabs his son at one point when everything was going to shit, he just said Gary. He was like, no, I'm not Gary.
Yeah, I forgot about the childhood friend's name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't remember if they ever disclosed the narrator's name, so that kind of threw me at the end. They should have gone back and looked at this a bit more carefully.
But yeah, it's interesting. So, that's like, I didn't catch that he said Gary there at the end, and I didn't. That makes more sense now that he disappeared too. Which maybe it was Gary and the dad that were waving fires at them.
Yeah. Or maybe when, if we're doing the whole double thing, maybe it was like the father that left originally wasn't the original father.
Oh.
And when we see him come at the end with the beard and everything, that was the him that went missing.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just thought of that.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's very cool. And he's all haggard and thinner than the son remembers him being.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Because he's been living on his own in the woods for however many years, decades.
That could have been. I mean, you can see hints of it, like at the beginning here when he says when he's telling his son about him and Gary.
Although
well,
one part, I'm sorry, one part of that wouldn't make much sense though is the father's clothes.
That's true.
Or the fact that then would technically this kid be his son?
Technically, no.
Okay. At least I think we got a clue as to that Gary disappeared, because he said well, he and I did the same thing, but we got a good foot further past the edge before we tipped over because the canoe was paddling through that steamy air. And then the narrator, the kid, was it the same as it is now though? Because it feels maybe strange. And then he looks at his dad and he sees that it's different. He feels like it's different, and he just says, yes, it's different. It's strange.
Yeah.
I'm leaning more toward the father being who he was that we were introduced to.
Yeah.
Rather than a doppelganger or a past version who has grown up. I think it was more that he kind of like slipped through time.
Yeah.
And reemerged it. He was displaced. Time ran differently for him than it did for his son. So when he reemerged, he has aged because of whatever he has been through while they were separated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he went to Jumanji.
Yes, exactly what happened. But did he go with Robin Williams or did he go with The Rock? Is the real
I hope he went with Robin Williams. At least it would have been funny.
That would have been amazing. I think he went with Nick Jonas.
Oh. Please don't.
Please don't.
I think you found a soft spot, Matt.
Zing!
Hey-oh, take that, Jonas, brother. I think you're so cool. We'll start a beef with him.
You can tag him every time in every show we have.
Yeah.
Be like, you suck.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to tag him now.
Well, we're going for that negative attention, not the positive attention.
I guess so.
Yes.
Edgelords.
Yeah. Contrarians to this day.
So what I think is talking about like the cosmic horror is like it starts pretty fast. Like, you know, we get like these nice descriptions of the river and the rapids, and then suddenly he's like, oh well, we're seeing this gar swim, and then the water is getting kind of deep and there's more primitive animals swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like pretty quick to make you kind of realize like, oh, they're in a weird place.
Yeah, something has happened.
And so that I thought, which was not what I was expecting at first. And then I was like, oh, all right, we're going to this area.
I think the only thing that threw me off a little bit was that, you know, are we giving any indication how old the kid is?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Oh, because he doesn't express fear.
Yeah.
As much as I would expect, because, you know, if you were seeing shit like this, I probably would have shit my pants.
Yeah.
I was thinking he was about 10 or 11.
Yeah. So
but also he's been raised as this kind of adventurer.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think it's because it has to be with his upbringing, because his father is not, you know, going batshit insane scared.
Well, and that made me wonder too when I was listening to it, and what I'm talking about, like these paragraphs I'm talking about, like I was trying to determine, I'm like, are they actually weird creatures, or is he, because he's young, he doesn't know? Because like we don't get very much description of them other than like, I'm looking at it now, he just says like new creatures swam up and the banks bleached from red to gray and the trees grew crooked. So like you're not getting mega descriptions of like weird 3-eyed tentacled fish or anything like that. It's just new creatures. So I agree with you too at that part where I was kind of like trying to determine, I'm like, is this just a young kid that doesn't know and so is just calling them this, or is it really like a brand new creature that nobody's ever seen before? Because you aren't getting any reaction other than that.
I think the part that creeped me out the most is that they didn't take a tent because they didn't want to have any separation between them and the natural world. I'm like, no, fuck that. First of all, I don't want to go camping ever to begin with, but if I have to,
camping's fun, man.
A tent because, you know, you got snakes and you got bugs and no, I'm not sleeping on the fucking ground.
Yeah.
I'm a civilized man. I'm not doing this.
I've never had fun at camping. I hate camping.
Yeah, it sucks. Give me a hotel room with air conditioning.
Some
Fuck your
HBO.
wolves.
I mean, I think the only reason I hate camping is because through my since I was a kid, every time we went camping, it was, you know, sunny outside, and then immediately as we started setting camp, the weather got awful.
Yeah,
it does.
And you just wake up in like a huge puddle of water.
Yeah. Well, I woke up in a huge puddle of water because I was sweating so fucking much because it was the hottest time of the year. And then you had to go and use the campground site's shower, which you had to pay for. So like you'd get like a minute off of a quarter. You had to take like $20 with you to take a fucking shower.
Where the hell were you staying?
I don't remember. It isn't even worth remembering.
Sounds like a rip-off.
It was a ripoff. The whole goddamn thing was a ripoff. And then you get into this fucking shower, and I accidentally dropped the soap, and when I picked it up, it was covered in other people's hair
and body dust.
Yeah, so I had to like wash the soap before I could use it again. But then I ran out of water, and I had to find another quarter and take like a little change person to the fucking shower with me. It's fucking ridiculous. The whole goddamn concept is insane. I don't understand why people think camping is fun. It's bullshit.
I love camping.
Oh,
you're camping too.
No, it's awful. This is what we did for like 5 days instead of staying in a hotel. We're roughing it. No, we're living like fucking primitives.
Thank you.
Sleeping on the ground. I can't take a shower. I'm sweaty. I stink.
Yes.
You just stayed at the wrong place.
It's awful.
Sounds like you stayed at a truck stop.
I would have rather have stayed at a truck stop.
It's like I've never stayed at a place I had to pay for the shower.
Oh, no, never again.
Oh man, that's too bad because it's a lot of fun.
No,
but I will agree. I would have brought a tent because mosquitoes are terrible.
Yeah, and I mean,
God,
I don't know. I feel like the best part about camping is being completely away from like civilization.
Yeah.
And if you have to carry quarters to a shower, like one, that's bad campground.
Yeah.
And two, no.
Just no.
Yeah. That's where I'm at with camping. Just no.
I'm plenty fine.
Staying at a Holiday Inn is my idea of roughing it, okay?
I mean, I live in a fucking island, so I'm pretty much far from any other civilization you probably might want, so I'm good.
Yeah, you don't have anything to complain about living on an island.
Yeah. I mean, if I want to go away from civilization, I just walk up the nearest mountain and I'll be fine.
I love it.
So no, camping, fuck that.
No. So you got all that bullshit, and then on top of it, you're going to accidentally wander into an alternate dimension. Like, you're going to start pulling some Crouch End bullshit in the middle of the woods on me. I'm fucking out.
Gonna start time hopping.
Yeah, no thanks.
Oh my god.
Like, I already have to worry about bears and the Predator and alien abductions. No, thank you. I'm good.
Oh my gosh.
I will say, out of all the forest-based horror stories that we've had already in this podcast recently, which one did you like better?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think I really liked Astrum.
I agree. Yeah.
I feel like these are neck and neck for me, but I like Astrum a little bit more.
Yeah, Astrum edges it out for me. This is up there, and yours was really good too, Rich. I liked that one a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's a kind of little mess.
I think the contrast between Astrum and this one is, because you are in Astrum, you're actually feeling more of the tension and the fear and the anxiety that the narrator has.
And you have more of an emotional disconnect with this character who's just kind of describing what he's seeing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think one thing we have to keep in mind, too, is that we're not getting this story in the present with this narrator as a child. He's telling us this
from the situation, but for a while now.
Yeah, he's telling us this as an older man who is looking back on. It feels like 50 years passed for him. Like by the time we catch up with him, like his father has already passed. He's married and has kids of his own. He's encroaching those later years of his own life. So I think we kind of have to chalk some of the lack of emotionality and explorations about that with the knowledge that it's also being told with so much hindsight and separation of years between the event and when he's telling it.
We just have to kind of accept the fact that this is in fact a tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we do eventually get to some fear. Like when his dad runs and is telling him to count, and I don't know, did anyone else actually listen to it, or did everyone just read it?
I read it.
I read it.
Okay, that might help too. I mean, I know obviously we've said this before. This wasn't a story. It wasn't aimed for Pseudopod. My guess is this is probably a reprint. But the reading of it, you can feel that a little bit more as the story goes on. I think once they get to the second scene of the spirits or whatever's in the woods, then you can kind of start feeling it. But I agree, up to that point, you're kind of just getting this story, and there, I mean, like even the discussion about thinnies or the soft spot, like you would feel like there would be a little bit more. Because if your dad was just sitting there with the woods and he's like, oh, yeah, this is a soft spot, I'd be like, well, what is going on?
You're crazy, old man. Take me home.
What was in that canteen you've been drinking all day?
Right. or just like context, maybe? What?
Yeah,
What do you think?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Grab some mushrooms I didn't know about.
Yeah. Again, I think because this is a tale, maybe he is, as the narrator, is kind of like knows what it is and is so like you are kind of playing on those little bit of a different level with it being a tale as opposed to in the moment. But yeah, so like the other thing I think, and I need to look back through this again, but it does feel like the whole concept of repeated kind of phrase or ideas going on adventures. His dad always said like, hey, we're gonna go on an adventure, even if it's your car broke down and you have to walk miles to the gas station.
It's an adventure.
It's an adventure. And so
no, that's more bullshit. That's not an adventure either.
So
this guy.
I feel like for this one, what I've kind of started picking up from it, especially when you get closer to the end and like the dad at the hospital years later, so it's not the main part of this, but is them, is this kind of look at father and sons and death and like what adventures kind of what life can be and how you can look at it. And I wonder too if that is part of where the emotion's not coming from, except for when the dad is starting to possibly get lost, is like adventures, and then when the adventure kind of becomes too much. That's my wonder on this.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah, same.
Because it just like, and I think when you get the end part, when they're sitting at the hospital and the dad is asking about, do you remember Cotner's Creek and all this stuff? And like, oh, I'm glad we saw it together. Like, I think that's that kind of bonding father-son moment / just dark adventure. And then even at the end when he's talking, like, he's going to die and he's saying that's going to be the adventure. So like, I wonder if that's what he was kind of going for in this one, is just that kind of thing.
I think I was definitely aiming for like a bittersweet ending.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, Alan, the ending, I felt like the story has a nice heart to it with the relationship between the son and his father and how it's kind of exploring all of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a good heart at the center of the story, and the ending plays on in a really great way.
Yeah.
But I do like also, I mean, like, it does get a little creepy there with like them seeing tentacles and an eye and everything out in the woods.
Oh yeah.
That's fun.
Yes, very much so. I had a good time with that. Yeah, I don't know. For me, they seemed like the descriptions that he was given, they reminded me more of like jellyfish that were kind of floating around.
Yeah, I was wondering, like
that's why I was
sense.
kind of like initially against the doppelganger aspect, because it was like they didn't sound even remotely human from the little bits of detail we got.
Yeah, I mean, how it describes it reminds me of jellyfish when you say the iridescent spears.
Yeah.
That's a jellyfish. That's the first thing that pops into my mind.
Now, one thing that it could be is like this could be a depiction of the father and son, but removed by higher dimensions.
Yeah. Well, and that's, like, you're kind of seeing like what you think is one thing, but then it's something else. I mean, like, but it's tricky though, because he talks about like, you could almost see these woods being just all full of monsters. He talks about a mountain shrugging and the trees turning into giant snakes. And so like, I don't know, it could just be this really messed up place. So,
could be like a triangle thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what, because what's fun is like the monster stuff it's so like kind of this small bit. I mean, it's probably only, I don't know, like a page and a half, 2 pages of it, because like you don't see much of it, which is kind of nice. Because again, I think we said that at the beginning, it lets you play with your imagination, because it's just this like the camera again is just focused on the father and son and waving of the torches and them testing whatever's out there. You actually don't see what they are for real. You just get ideas and you don't know what they did. I like that, because the kid closes his eyes. I forgot that part, and he has to count.
Yeah, he can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought the atmosphere was very effective.
Yes.
And I need to read more of this collection.
One thing I thought, too, that Gordon B. White does over a number of these stories is he's really, really good at depicting this father-son dynamic.
Yeah.
I thought that stood out really well in this story, and also in the Buchanan Boys, which I talked about earlier.
And man, his word choices are just amazing.
Yes. He really has a way with words.
Yes.
He's a fantastic writer.
I'm listening to it, so I'm like, holy crap. I don't know if I could think of sentences like that.
I have an Ark of Rookfield. I need to read it ASAP.
Nice. Yeah, I'm curious about that one too, but my TBR being what it is, I'm going to have to
TBR.
Wait. Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
I have a special announcement for next week.
Oh.
Speaking of Mount TBR, someone who's recently added to mine and Mike's Mount TBR, Bo Johnson, is going to be on our podcast next week.
Nice.
Nice.
And we will be ditching the woods for the lake. And we'll be reading The Raft by Stephen King.
All right.
Nice. Well,
so
Stephen King's really starting to pick up on this show. We had a serious drought of King material, and now all of a sudden we're really diving in.
I don't know, who is this guy?
I know some up and comer no one's ever heard of before.
I feel like I need to read more of this person. He's pretty good.
Yeah, on September 5th, Bo will be coming on, and we will discuss The Raft.
Awesome.
And I think it's going to be a really fun time. I do urge your audience to go pick up Gordon B. White's collection as Summer Mask Slips. He is a fantastic writer, and I need to read more of this collection myself. I've had it for like a year, and it's just been sitting here on my Kindle.
I need to read more by him. Just by reading this, I'm like, yep, this is a guy I need to read more of.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. This is cool. This was a really the stories.
Pick with me.
Yeah, this was a really good pick.
I'm good at picking stuff.
Oh man, yeah. I think this is great. If you need to read this, listen to this. It's a really good story. I think it would be interesting to get other people's opinions on it.
Totally.
Yeah, and I need to read more of him. I really like him.
And also, just for the listeners out there, if you ever want to advertise or promote a book or anything on our podcast, be sure to email us at staringintopod@gmail.com, and we can discuss rates then. And you can find all of us on social media. Vitme, where can our listeners get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is VitlemeS with a capital S. And I'm also on BookTube with my channel Fanged Pipsqueak Reads, where I review indie and small press books.
Perfect. And Matt?
I am on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
Mike?
You can find me on Twitter at MikeH5856, or head over to my website at michaelpatrickhicks.com, follow the links, and buy some of my books.
And you can find me on Twitter at Rudy53088, and I've recently started a book talk, so you can find me on TikTok under the same handle, Rudy53088, where I'll be posting about books and being a nerd on there.
Oh,
and this is Richard Gerlach saying, keep staring.